Hi, I'm Noel. I run a website called idon'tLikeComputers.com where I teach musicians how to produce music with a computer. A lot of times people will tell you that presets suck. That's not true entirely. There's some presets that really do suck, but in general, presets are more overwhelming than they are bad. I think presets are really helpful for kind of getting your head around what the instrument can do. However, it definitely can trip you up during your creative process. I have a method that I use that allows you to really rip through presets quickly and get to the meat of what you're trying to do. I think a lot of people who say don't use presets ever really are kind of doing themselves and the people that they tell that to a disservice. There's a lot of great stuff in there. You just got to know how to use it. So my first rule about using presets is never go through presets during a creative session. That basically means that I separate the sessions where I choose presets from the sessions where I'm actually making music. A songwriting session is a very different operation than searching for sounds. For me, that method has worked the best over the years to separate your creative time from your kind of nuts and bolts practice time. If you're going through presets while you're trying to create, you're just going to get frustrated. I went through that myself and I figured out that it's really important to separate those two. I'm going to go through and show you when I'm in production how I deal with presets. So this is a program called Complete Control. It's kind of a shell program for a company called Native Instruments, if you're familiar with them. I also have the Complete Control keyboard in front of me here. I'm not going to use the Complete Control keyboard features because you might not have it. It's not necessary to have the Complete Control keyboard to use the Complete Control software. All you need is a Native Instruments account. You sign up for their website, you can download this piece of software, it's free. There's a standalone version, which I'm looking at now, and there's also a version that's a plugin that you can open in any DAW like Ableton or Logic or Reaper, or I use Reaper, Pro Tools. It's really just a great organizer for things. You don't actually have to have what's called an NKS standard format, which is compatible with this system. You don't even need to have a virtual instrument that does that. There's people out on the internet who make presets for Complete Control for more or less every virtual instrument. For instance, I have Serum, which is a non-NKS compatible VST. It doesn't matter at all. I can load them up right in here and pick my presets through there. It's super easy. So here's how I run through presets very quickly, very methodically, with just a few rules of thumb that kind of help you along the way. All right, so the first thing in here I'm gonna do is load up one of my instruments. It's scanned all my plugins and it's loaded up all the presets that I have available to me. All right, so let's go through here. I'm gonna grab the ARP2600V. This is a plugin by a company called Arturia. It is a third party that is compatible with Complete Control. The ARP2600 is a great vintage synthesizer. The interface is designed in a way that represents what that real instrument looked like back in the day. We have 535 presets. In general, sure, you might want to narrow things down with the tag cloud here, bass, bowed strings, brass, drums, whatever, but you don't have to. And in fact, I really discourage people from doing that just because maybe something that's a bass you could use for something else like a pad. Maybe something that's a pad you can use for a lead. The way that they categorize them, you're kind of locked into this thing. Something I really don't like is their character section here. Like, oh yeah, I want something digital, dirty, distorted. These are really unhelpful adjectives. Like, all due respect to the people who made these presets, I'm gonna kind of hijack their way of doing things and do it my own way and show you how it works much better. I would discourage you from approaching this from the standpoint of, oh, I might use this someday. Don't fall into that trap. Generally, when you're looking for sounds in a creative session, you want something that kind of goes along with your sound. You should probably stick to a single genre if you can. For me personally, my personal solo project music, I work on kind of industrial trip hop. That's kind of what I call my music. You know, you can use hip hop for that. You can use something that's kind of dark. You can use something that's kind of those genres. If I was like, okay, let's go through these and I'm thinking about all genres that I might possibly make. I work on a side project that's kind of R&B and stuff like that. Don't worry about that. Stick to one genre. So I'm going to stick to my industrial trip hop kind of vibe. If I hear something that's not really going to fit into that category and that vibe, I'm just going to throw it out. Keep your focus very narrow when you do this. The first thing in Complete Control over here we're going to do is I am going to turn off the previews. Now that sounds weird. Native Instruments worked super hard getting all these previews for these presets, and they're great. You know, like, you can kind of get an idea of what they are. And you can kind of narrow things down quickly, but if you're going for a vibe, it's really much quicker to rely on that. So I'm just gonna load these up one by one, and I'm gonna show you how I rip through these. So I'm gonna go all the way to the top up here, and then 1 osc sinus, it says. If you see on the right side here, I have all these stars already lined up. And those are the things that I've already starred to say, okay, I like this. It's gonna fit with my vibe. It's gonna fit with a session that I do for my own personal music. These are gonna work. All right, so I have the previews turned off. I have no idea what this sounds like. I'm gonna go ahead and play this. I'm gonna play kind of through the whole range of keys here, so I can hear where it is. It works better as a bass, sounds like. And then up here at the top of the complete control interface, I'm gonna click this little knob here, and it's gonna give me these kind of most used parameters. So this is the VCF general, gives you like the cutoff and resonance. These are kind of things if you're using a subtractive synthesizer. These are the really common attributes, and I'm gonna really quickly be able to figure out if this is a usable preset for what I want to do with it. So I'm just gonna grab this cutoff here. All right, it sounds really cool. I like this a lot. I'm gonna give this a star. So I'm gonna go over here to the right side and click the star. The star is more or less just a bookmark. So I can come back here later and I can hit the star at the top here, and there's all the sounds that I liked so far. Okay, so you might say, if you only are choosing for one specific genre, what happens when I want to make another genre? If I'm really going to do a completely different project and I'm not going to focus on that, I will literally go in and I'll trash the favorites database and start over. And you're like, oh my God, all that work, all that time that you spend going through all these presets, it's wasted. No, absolutely not, because you're in a different mindset for a different genre if you're going to go through this again with a different project. All right, so moving on. So we're gonna go down to Birdland here. I'm gonna double click that. It's kind of like the other one. I don't really like it, so I'm just gonna skip this one and go to the next one. All right, double click Birdia. Cool. All right, so that sounds good. So Complete Control actually has a built-in arpeggiator. You should be able to use this with every keyboard. So go up here at the top and click on this and you activate your arp. So you should be able to hear now. It's pretty cool. Now I'm going to modify the cutoff and resonance like I was doing before. All right, this sounds good to me. I'm gonna star it, move on. Next one. I'm gonna turn the ARP off just to kind of get an idea. This is very similar to the one that came right before it, so I'm gonna hit down, enter on my keyboard. That's a shortcut of how to load the next preset instead of having to double click every single time. So this one is called Bling. No, I'm absolutely not going to use this. Use your instincts. Go really quickly. Say, in the first 10 seconds, you tweak a couple knobs. It's not doing it for you. Move on. Next. Enter. I made the mistake in the past. If I know the synthesizer a little bit better, I know the interface, I know where some of the parameters are, and I'm used to tweaking them, I'll go in and be like, oh yeah, I can make this patch into something. What you need to do is be absolutely brutal with these presets. Be mean. Just say, ugh, this is stupid. Move on. You've got 500 and some presets you got to go through here. So rip, rip, rip. Move on. Bling it in. I have no idea what I would do with that. All right, next. Okay, whatever. Next. See, I'm just skipping right along here. It's got kind of a sample and hold feel. Nah, not really. Next. It says blues, they're not kidding. Next. Probably not. All right, next, Boomer. Interesting, but not really. I wouldn't use this for anything I'm doing. I've gone down through, I don't know, 10 presets now. That really has not taken me very long. So the most important thing I'm thinking about right now is I'm not worried that I'm wasting creative time. That takes a lot of pressure off. That's why I really highly recommend you do this in a separate session. Especially if you're a producer and you have a client in the room, you're not gonna wanna sit there and go through presets. I've done this. Don't do this. You're going through presets and like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, maybe that. Oh, that sounds good. That's just a total waste of everybody's time. If you have a certain client coming over with a certain genre of music, pick out the presets ahead of time. I mean, you don't want to sit there and have them like get on their phone and then they're getting bored and like it breaks the flow. You do not want to break the flow when you're working on a creative project. It's just the wrong way to go about it. I can go into production and I can say, okay, this is kind of 90% of the way there, or it's 50% of the way there. And I can be like, okay, I can hear that. This is going to be useful for what I want to do. And then I can modify that patch, especially if I know the synth already. I can go in and modify that patch and kind of just blast out something a lot quicker. Just save yourself the time. If you want to be your own sound designer, great, go for it. You know, these are really fun synthesizers to play around with. Sure, load up an initialized patch and start from scratch and build your own patch. It's not uncommon for me to do that if I'm going to set up a patch for a session, but there's so much gold in here, you're really missing out if you don't go through the presets. The people that make these sounds are professionals. These are people that this is all they do all day, and they're really good at it. Especially if you like the synthesizer and you maybe didn't think it was capable of certain things, this is a really great way to explore those options and see what there is out there. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you stuck around and you dug this video, please subscribe for future videos. I'm going to do a lot more stuff like this, sharing my process. If you're interested in producing your own music and maybe you're new to producing music, I run a website called idon'tLikeComputers.com, and I teach specifically computer music production to musicians. Thanks so much.